It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnet Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
Welcome to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here with my co-host,
Barnet Bain.
Good
I'm
to
not
see
saying anything about the thought-provoking ideas.
You didn't? That's good.
No, didn't say a word.
Hey,
no pressure about that.
I want to go back to a former episode, and I want to talk about it a little bit. So
Yeah.
can we talk for a minute about the wives show?
Yes.
So this is a very interesting thing. You know that Jazz and I, as with every relationship, these are, as you like to say, they wax and they wane, and there's sort of moments where you're tapped into each other. There's moments where you're kind of doing your own thing, and or there's moments where you're matching up in a more conflicting way, and this is all normal. Jazz and I have been in a really nice groove lately. I mean, really nice. I'm so in love with my wife right now. It's really spectacular. And look, it's about a little over a month since we did the wives show. And I watched it recently, and I recognized something. And I know this is no huge aha to people, but it was for me in the moment. Everything we talked about doing in that show, we've done. That whole conversation about going to the level of intimacy, being with the part of me that goes, and then going further. And everything that Jazz talked about is how she wanted to show up in relationship with me. She's done it. So all I wanted to sort of initiate is the power of saying it out loud, this power of stating something publicly, of saying an intent, of putting it out there and having people witness to it. And, you know, in the past I would have thought, and I think this is helpful anyhow, that I would have had to design very strict practices so that this would manifest. We didn't do that. We did the show, and we kind of, you know, whatever. The rest was...
You did do some very powerful things.
Yeah.
You just didn't go back over the old roadmap. But I just want... I know that you have.
You're right. No, the rituals have been huge because we've been talking about ritualizing
And
things
speaking it out
more.
loud is a ritual.
Yeah, that's right. That's
a
right.
ritual is a lyrical mythology. It's when we take charge consciously of our own and begin to direct our mythology. So the speaking, I think what you're alluding to is the speaking, the power in the speaking,
The declaration.
There's power in
almost.
the telling.
Yeah.
When it's delivered from such a place of ownership and such a place of understanding, and it's not pushed away. It's not.
It's
and
it's
not
also very
theoretical.
genuine.
It's
Yeah.
genuine,
Yeah.
and then it becomes a you know that little cartoon of this figure that's pulling himself over. Dilbert pulls himself over the over the wall all the time. Little eyes over the wall.
Right.
We pull ourselves up. It's an acknowledgement. It is a recognition and an acknowledgement and an ownership of a certain state. And we all know people who are constantly complaining and bemoaning, this is going on and this is going
Right.
on and I can't and it doesn't. That's a different energetic than here's what's going on and I own it and I'm not pushing back on it and I feel it and I'm not making any stories about it and I'm releasing it. Then there's
the
power
larger context is in service to a vision, because we've said this a lot, where if there
no
isn't-
vision, you're just back. You just
That's
pick it up again.
You're back. Well, you're just replaying the old script. It's Groundhog Day.
You pick up that
Yeah.
script again.
Yeah.
Well, part of the loop is that people. I personally get trapped in my loop and play over and over things, and then I think I'm recognizing them and feeling them and dropping them and releasing them and forgiving them. I think that's happening, but I don't have anything to. I don't have a new script to pick up.
So can I make a distinction here?
Yes.
In service to a vision, one of the most effective processes I've ever done was Harville Hendricks' Imago work. And we did a workshop. I think it was long. It was like 3 months long. And it was something called spiritual relationships or spiritual something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But what was so powerful about this process was it started with a vision. It started with what is it that you could imagine your relationship being? And it was really a process of drawing out this vision. In fact, I published the vision in my book. It's in my book, is the vision Jasmine and I created for our relationship. Mm-hmm. What was so powerful about that was then all of the work we did after that was in service to the vision. If it's not in service to the vision, and I'll tell you, I've had therapists. My first wife and I went to couples therapy and did lots of complaining in service to complaining and being right and ingraining our positions, and that's what we did. And while I believe that therapist was well-meaning, I really do, the miss was there was no vision. And so if there's a sense of where we're going, then the choices we make, if they're in service to where we're going,
they're aligned.
Changes the game entirely.
They're aligned.
Yeah.
So that is a very that is ritualized behavior that you're referring to, and it simply is it's such a novel menu that we don't count it. It's so easy to say. It's so easy to say. Well, we haven't been doing what we've been doing, and I don't know why. But we haven't been doing what we've been doing, but instead we have been involved, less of a doing, but we have been involved in a different kind of practice.
That's right.
That ritualizes what can be and my commitment to can be in a way that is doesn't have obvious cause and effect attached to it. It's not, well, I went down and we had a big talk and that's appropriate at some place, but there are different practices involved in furthering a vision, and as you say, some of them have to do with the choices that we make, knowing that they are in alignment with a vision, and knowing that when they are in alignment with trailing edges, then we have the awareness to pull back and say, Which
what
one,
am I
which
supporting?
Which one am I feeding? Which one am I
feeding?
paying energy into?
Yeah.
And then also ritual work.
So we should talk about ritual work because we haven't talked about it enough. And ritual as sacred expression, that we really do begin to create these ways, and I'll even speak specifically of ways that we do it, where we're generating a felt sense. It's a quality that we're generating internally through these things that we do in a ritualistic, practiced way, because they're that important to us.
We're moving our imagination. We are moving more fully into our imagination. We're becoming more relational and more identified, less relational and more identified with our imaginations. We are beginning to be in a dance with that imagination in both in the inner world and in the outer world.
And by naming certain qualities and finding expression for those in a ritualistic way, we begin to embody them. They become more felt. And then we're really in the frequency alchemy. We really are then resonating. And folks, I hope
we're shifting our frequency. Then.
We're shifting our frequency, and we're inviting in all manner of possibility.
So you're referring to ritual, and let's unpack it a little bit.
Sure, why not?
Some of the ritual that you're referring to, there's different kinds. Some of it is a health practice.
Right.
Some of it you could say, well, that's just good habits. Good habits. Any habits are a ritual. It's habits that you're doing with awareness.
And intent.
So there are health practices. There are exercise practices that you ritualize.
Mm-hmm.
There are
and make sacred.
Relational practices that you make matter. They matter. They matter because I want to protect I want to keep my body healthy. And I want to keep it healthy not only for me, but I have a wife that I want to keep my body healthy for, and I have children that I want, and I have loved ones, and I have friends. And sometimes we are more disposed to lift out of old patterns for the impact it has on others, sometimes more so than for ourselves. So for whatever reason. So there are those. And then there are habits that we can generate that become exercises that we do with our own imagination, owning that that imagination is a conversation I'm having with my subconscious mind.
Yes.
And I know that you are involved in one of those kinds of theatrical rituals right now.
Yeah, well, I've created an altar. I'm going there with a certain intent to generate a quality that I can express and I can embody in this ritual regularly. And here's what's coming out of it, Barnet. I'm finding outlets to do that. And so it's so in my awareness because I'm doing this every day, sometimes twice a day, as you know, just to really get it generating in me. What is the quality I want to experience? And being aware of the fragments that again, sort of block that. In service to opening it up, I'm willing to be with those fragments in a particular way. I'm willing to go, oh, okay, I'm hearing from parts of me that have resistance. But I'm resonating more and more with
you
the
have an
vision.
altar, and you have certain items on your altar that are symbols of things to you,
Correct.
Symbols of things that you may want to release, symbols of things that you want to grow into, symbols of things that you want to generate for yourself or for others or for the world. These you also, I know,
have a purification practice as well.
Practice. I know you also light candles as a way to
in a very ritualized way.
In a very ritualized
Very
way.
ritualized.
So I want to just make the distinction for anyone that's listening that this work with altars, or it can be done in any way, but this is not about praying to. This is not about giving up. This is not about giving power over to something else. This is about having a conversation with your subconscious and aspects of ourselves that are more aware than where we currently are.
And it's about generating a vibratory experience that then needs to find expression in other ways as well. This is why the statements about what I want to generate in relationship with my wife, and then the opportunities to do that, because it's held in my consciousness, because it's what I'm orient my life towards. It's one of those things that I have an intent and I have a sense of focus, and then the opportunities come up for me to express that, and they're everywhere, by the way. I mean,
you could call this a prayer. It's a turbocharged prayer because a prayer.
Well, it doesn't have that helpless quality sometimes that I was taught to pray.
I'm now using the word prayer in the most empowered sense, not as a pathetic plea, not as what a wretch am I, which is a manipulation. I'm so helpless that somebody's got to do it for me. So I'm not referring to that.
Yeah,
I am.
This is an empowered prayer.
I'm talking about a communication to the more.
Yes, absolutely.
And that communication, when it is ritualized, bypasses a lot of the logic and reason. It still moves through the matrix of logic and reason, but bypasses a lot because logic and reason has no patience for it. Logic and reason says, what is this? Right. What use is this?
Come on, let's get to
where is the bottom line?
Tax.
How is this going to? So it is a communication that is much more effective because it is not buzzkilled by all the parts that are only comfortable inside of the logical linear model.
When we talk about frequency, it's very funny that certain people won't be watching this. I'm grateful for that. Because, again, this is one of those things where even as we start to discuss it, and you know how committed, Barnet. You were over the house the other day, whatever day it was, Tuesday, and we were talking about this. I am so committed to this because I'm so aware of the shift within me. I can feel it in my stomach. I am so much more aligned with where I'm going than picking up the pieces from where I've been. That's my orientation. And I'm grateful to you, by the way, because it's in the work that we've done that I've really come to this recognition that I have spent a lot of time tracking the map, and as opposed to being a map maker, to use your precise language, that I'm willing to track in service to where I'm going, but I'm not willing to track in service to perpetuating and reperpetuating the same cycles. It's not interesting to me at this point. And the upside of having a sense of these, vital capacities that I want to grow into, the re-enchanting of my life and the exploring what's possible and bumping up. The whole New Year's show with our wives was about bumping up against where we pull back, where I pull back in intimacy and connection and go, I can't handle that. And so for me to get to the edge and begin to imagine beyond, and then to find rituals that just is expanding, and reverberating, so that I'm really in that what's the language? That vibration, the frequency. And I'm generating it. And it's coming up everywhere. Opportunities are abounding. It's this crazy moment in time. You know that. You know some of the stuff that's going on in my world.
A lot of good stuff.
It's crazy.
Different channel.
Different channel.
Click. Click.
That's the big offer.
And you're right. People sort of push back on that, and lots of me pushes back on that.
Lots of me pushes back as well. And sometimes I'm sitting there doing my ritual thinking, I'm crazy. That tyranny of the logic and reasons coming in and saying, what are you, nuts? What if your family could see this? What if your brother as a professor could see you now?
But where I operate out of is that it is a dream, the whole thing.
Totally with you on that one.
And we're becoming lucid in the dreaming.
Yep.
And that there is, the imagination does not stop at the frontier of logic and reason. Beyond logic and reason, there is more.
Much more.
And we are now, what ritual does is it penetrates beyond logic and reason into a complete dimension of experience of that lies outside of how we are programmed.
Yeah.
And the mind bucks at this. It doesn't want to go there. It has a bunch of reasons to dismiss it.
And it's likely that the mind will attract a lot of folks to play that role. I mean,
sure.
You know that we've had this uptick on
negative
feedback.
If you tune to 1400 AM, you will only get 1400 AM.
Yeah.
So yes, we've had some. And
I've had an uptick of people showing up to play that role. But the difference for me today, and this is on a good day, is that I'm very clear what's showing up as resistance. I'm really clear on what parts of my experience are showing up to present back to me a mirror to go, oh yeah, so it's not as dramatic as it once was.
Well, we're owning these aspects of self.
They're us.
And they're us. Yeah,
they're us. Yeah, because I used to love the idea they weren't me. I used to be very enamored with the idea that I could wag my finger and point out there and say, look at all those people out there that are doing this or that, and I wasn't willing to own they're me.
Well, what I'm playing with now,
yeah,
and I have moments where it's really just brittle words, and then moments where, wow, I get seized by it, by its an imagination. It imagines itself. It's not even me doing it. For example, most of me, or at least most of the parts of that I'm aware of, holds it that I am having a conversation with you. There's an edge of me that I'm feeding attention to, that is growing, it's like a little fresh shoot bursting through concrete. That is, and I moved even when I allude to it, is I am a conversation. I am this conversation.
Yeah.
I'm not having a conversation with you. I am this conversation with you, both sides. That's a grappling hook. That, these mountaineer movies where they throw that hook up and then they haul themselves up the side of a slope. So that is that's the hook for me. It's thrown up to a peak and I'm hanging from a cable and I'm pulling myself up to meet that. But the leading edge of me, the cutting edge of me, intuits that I am this conversation. I am the whole ball of wax.
The more we own, the more empowered we are. I mean, that's a true statement. We've said it a lot of times, but I mean, again, layer after layer after layer. What can I really own this whole dream and be the dreamer versus feeling like I'm being dreamed by it, that I'm at the
Yes. And all of the psychology, the years of psychology about combing through, sifting through the subconscious as an inside job. And now the new territory of spirituality is when you begin to understand that we are sifting through the subconscious as an outside job. There is no difference between them.
That's a big one.
So I am in a relationship here with my subconscious and my unconscious. I'm walking through it and pretending.
Right. Part of you likes to pretend.
Yeah, I'm a story maker.
Pretend. Yeah.
I'm shifting out of that story, not to no story, but to a super story, to a dimensional story, to a story of discovery of who I really am.
Beautiful. And I'm thrilled to be with you on that journey and mirroring.
I'm thrilled to be you on that journey.
And I'm thrilled that all you that are watching us are us as well.
Yeah,
thanks for tuning in or listening to us, I should say. And we hope that you continue to come back to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Thanks for listening.